Against the backdrop of a raging COVID epidemic and a quite visceral Black Lives Matter movement, Abroad While Black was born. Our goal was to highlight Black perspectives from all over the world. It was our way of proving there are other ways to live, other places to be successful, and different cultures that embrace our Blackness. In 2020, the Abroad While Black team created dozens of responsive hot takes and thoughtful interviews covering topics ranging from current events, business opportunities, dating, and life-changing moments. In 2021, our co-hosts Cordy and Sean aim to share more success stories, more productive introspection, and most importantly, how to relocate to a place that truly values what you offer the world. Abroad While Black is more than a show. This is a social experiment hell-bent on discovering new ways to secure the bag and live our best lives. Join the Abroad While Black squad. All right. Welcome. We're having a special episode of Abroad While Black today. We are doing it live and in person. We have a wonderful guest, Mr. Ethan, here today. I've already started nicknaming you guys, you and your partner, the Kings of LA. That's from what I've been seeing going on.
Solid. Kings of LA, man.
Yeah. So, so my wonderful co-host, Cordy, will not be here on this one, but, we will do this in her memory. And I'm sure we'll be able to do some feedback and different stuff back and forth. But outside of that, we'll just jump right in. I'll just give you a little bit of feedback or a little bit of background. So with Abroad While Black, I've just noticed that with my experience moving from the U.S. to the African continent, there were just so many things that I didn't know. There were so many different ways of living that I didn't know existed. Mm-hmm. So at one point, I just decided that, or me and my co-host decided that we wanted to start capturing these different personality types and these different perspectives of people living all throughout the continent. Wow, it's lit, right?
Blowing you up, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, we wanted to capture these different perspectives and give other people insight on, whether they should or possibly shouldn't move, because it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think you have a very compelling story to tell today, not only because of what you're working on, but obviously because this is your first time in, purely Black American, jumped in there raw, uncut. But before we get into that, I have my questions here. But what I want to do is just kind of get a little bit of background about you. Tell us a little bit about you, some of the things that you're working on, so we can kind of put this amazing story in context.
Yeah, great. So Ethan Smith, once again, as Sean said, from Los Angeles, California. So definitely a long way from home being here in Africa. It has been an exciting couple of weeks, just really, like you said, diving in and experiencing something new. Being around all Black folks has been quite an interesting experience that I've truly come to love. And, I've always wanted to make my way to Africa, and this is a perfect way to be introduced to it. So definitely plan on coming back at some point. But just a little bit about myself, again, from Los Angeles, born and raised, have lived there all my life. Went to school there, went to college there, always wanted to get out, but in my travels, just not only around the world, but domestically within the States, just realized that LA was and is the place for me.
Okay.
It just fits who I am as a person, and just my ability to be able to navigate the environment there has been pretty special and pretty ingrained into just my day-to-day, but definitely love going other places and experiencing other cultures, other atmospheres, just to see what's out there. And certain unique situations keep me there as well. So opportunities have just always been there for me. But that said, it has been good just to travel around the world and see culture and see just how different people get out. And Africa, I was telling you guys earlier this week, is Africa has been that place that I feel like I can definitely see myself coming back to. A lot of experiences abroad have been short of these one-off, like that was great, but I'm good. Africa's just like, this is great. It feels like home.
Okay. Awesome.
And so I, just a little bit about my background. I am the CEO for Treehouse Co-Living. We are a co-living company in Los Angeles whose primary focus is to build community. Myself and founder and CEO Prophet Walker grew up in the same neighborhood, Compton Watts areas in Los Angeles, and really have navigated that atmosphere, growing up in poverty, then transcending that, going to college and having a unique experience there, and having a unique experience just being a professional in the working world has really put us on this path of really adhering to and trying to understand more of what community is, and trying to establish community within our own right as adults. And so I think that both of us have a unique experience of growing up and really seeing community in different types of ways, given what we had at the time as youth, and now being able to be in a position to actually continue to build that in a unique way has been pretty special. So I've committed my last several years to really working with him and working with our team to build community within the space that you live in. Our business model is we're effectively real estate developers, and we build multifamily apartment buildings that really speak to the essence of design, of really making a place feel like home. Both of our backgrounds are engineering. He followed more of a path early on of real estate development.
Okay.
I myself followed more of a path of engineering, as well as consulting. I worked in the consulting world for a while, worked in the nonprofit world. So I've bounced around a bit and have finally found a space where I feel like I can give my full self, not only from understanding things from a technical standpoint, but also just really being able to dive into something that speaks to who I am as a person holistically. So that's personal life.
Purpose.
Yeah, purpose for sure is a thing that a lot of people take time to search for a long time. It's funny, so I sing too. It's one of the things I do on my free time.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to get something.
I'm actually writing a song that's called Purpose right now.
Dope.
And it just talks about, it's the lyrics are, it's your purpose, a special gift that can't be purchased. It's God's voice telling you you're worth it. Purpose, your purpose is on purpose. And it just really sort of is this reinforcement of like everybody has purpose, and it's up to you to plug into different people and different experiences and allow yourself to sit with yourself and really come to a full understanding of what that purpose is for your life. And I think that purpose is this lifelong journey that we all are going to continue to seek, but along that journey of purpose, you reach these milestones of really tapping into what your purpose is. And so,
if you're lucky.
Yeah, other than that, like I said, love singing, love cooking. I've got 2 boys that I'm raising, my nephews, who are definitely pride and joy and give me a bit of a challenge with just growing up and understanding life. Dove into raising them 8 years ago, and so it was a pivotal moment in life, and one that I've just embraced. And so it's been a really good experience there. And so I just overall try to enjoy life, man. And every day, tomorrow isn't promised, yesterday is gone, and all we have is the moment here. And so that's how I just approach life and embrace it.
All right. So you mentioned some really cool stuff. I think really touching in on the purpose stuff, even the song. I might have drop a guest bar on there. But you mentioned the fact that you've mentioned 2 dichotomies. Like there's one part where you came from like very humble beginnings or very difficult beginnings. If you're deep in the Black community, once you mention things like Compton and Watts, it's like, oh. Yeah. I remember when I was in Chicago, when you start mentioning some of the neighborhoods around there and different things like that, there's an automatic assumption. And what I see now is you're focused on enjoying life. You've put yourself in a perspective where you've been able to go and take different perspectives from different places, and kind of understand that, like, okay, I've set up roots here, I've built my own infrastructure here, and now I'm able to spread out. I think that's amazing. I think I've reached a similar point in a different way. But I guess what you touched on where is what I'm kind of interested in. You said you went to college, and from there, and I have to mention this just due to the times. Happy Founders Day. You're Alpha Psi in arrears.
Yo.
So when he was in the kitchen cooking, doing all these different things, I was like, wait a minute, the shoulders just kind of slick. They're kind of smooth.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, but like, yeah, what school did you go to? Like, how was that experience and whatnot? I know that. Well, anyway, we'll get into the other stuff. But,
yeah. So I went to Loyola Marymount University, and I came through Kappa Alpha Psi in fall 2008 through the Beta Omega chapter, which is a combination of University of Southern California, Loyola Marymount University, and Pepperdine University are our three schools that comprise of our chapter.
Nice.
And I think that was an experience that added to my overall college experience. And I think the beauty of it was just being able to be a part of a brotherhood that, I had brothers growing up that I wasn't very close to in my younger years. And so my community of brotherhood was always just like the dudes that I hung out with, and being able to be with like-minded individuals who had different perspectives on life was always something that was encouraging to me. And so when I got to college, it wasn't a community that I was seeking necessarily, but it was a community that where the foundation of that community was laid at the beginning of college, when I started meeting this group of guys who I clicked with, some of which were from LA, some of which were from out of state. And it was like some dope brothers, and I was just like, man, this seems like a cool thing to explore. I knew very little about fraternities and just that life.
That's why I was really curious about it, because I was wondering like how was the transition from coming from a Compton or Watts and going into this university, especially where you attended.
I mean, growing up in South Central, it was. I had my community of dudes back then who were on some other stuff, and we were our own fraternity, and thankfully I was just a person who never wanted to follow the crowd, and I've always wanted to define myself in a way that set myself apart from groups that I felt weren't always doing the best of things, but there was still this connection that we had that sort of kept us together.
Gotcha.
So I was in it, but I wasn't a part of just activity that was happening. I knew how to steer clear of just foolishness. So Kappa Alpha Psi and just that process of growing with young men who had experienced life in very different ways. It was a pretty special experience, and then going through my 4 years of college with them and just sort of cultivating on those relationships that existed there. It was and then beyond that, right? Those guys are my best friends. The guys that I came through the fraternity with, those guys are the ones who I've been in their weddings. They'll be in mine one day whenever that happens. Their kids are my nephews and nieces, and my kids will be their nephews and nieces. And so, again, really circling back on this idea of community, man. It's that thing that really brings us all together. It's just that understanding of what that actually means for us.
That's what I was just about to ask. From the treehouse perspective, what does it mean when you say community? What is that? How do you boil down that into a sentence or two? What does that community represent?
Yeah, I think from Treehouse's perspective, community is a group of people who can come together for a purpose that's greater than them. We all have our paths in life, but there are just some fundamental things that we believe that people should align with, and one of those things is kindness and just really caring for your neighbor and knowing your neighbor and being able to lean on one another, being able to celebrate one another's successes, being able to support one another in whatever ways are necessary or whatever ways that people need to be supported. I think those are the core fundamentals of what creates community. Of course, you have your differences, and of course, you have some things that pertain to people that you don't align with. But at the end of the day, being able to come together and have those disagreements but also understand at the core of each individual, you hope that there's a spirit of kindness, and you hope that there's a spirit of togetherness that always just brings everyone back together.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's what Treehouse is trying to create, is just that sort of disposition that people hold to where it's just like, we all live in this space, we all are a part of this ecosystem of people who truly want community and want to build on what that idea is for them. And so yeah, I think that's how we look at it for Treehouse.
Okay, so I guess it's really interesting. The thing that sticks out to me the most about this is that I think from just pulling in from some of the conversations we've had since the week that you've been here, there were several things that stuck out. One being there, inside the Treehouse, there being shared spaces, communal spaces like kitchens. I'm not quite sure if you said bathrooms or different things like that. But when you started mentioning those things, that actually started having more of an African feel. That level of community where it's more so than just sharing an experience or sharing a value set. You're kind of sharing resources. You're sharing, like actual personal spaces. Is that I'm assuming that's on purpose, but like how does that play into the whole community? One more thing that you mentioned as well, were that when you were looking at previously what was on an application when somebody was trying to apply, like what were some of the things they used to filter people out?
I think one of the things that our CEO and founder, Prophet, always mentioned is this idea of success buying isolation. And especially our generation, we've gotten to this point where we get a kick on our careers, things are going well, we make a little bit of money, and we have the opportunity to move out to these suburbs, move out to spaces where we can isolate ourselves and be alone, thinking that this luxury experience, so to speak, is what creates peace and serenity, and we think that it's the thing that we want. But in actuality, what ends up happening is that our natural disposition is to always seek community. And loneliness is a thing, We're seeing it a lot in the pandemic, where folks are trying to find avenues of connection. Loneliness just brings in so many issues with people that we're starting to see on a much grander scale now because of the position that we're in. And so we also have this idea that we need a lot of space. For whatever reason, we think that the more space we have, the better our position in life will be. And I myself thought this, like, when I get older, I'm gonna get this massive house and have all this space, have all this square footage to be able to move around in. And what I found just in my own personal experience is space does nothing but force me to fill it, right? And when I have a ton of space, all I'm doing is putting furniture in it, and I may want to host people from time to time. But oftentimes, like, space isn't the thing that really creates home. It's the people that you either invite into the home or the people that you live with that really create that robust experience of what home life is like and how community is being built within the home. And so bringing that to Treehouse and sort of how we think through what our units look like, what our spaces look like, is we have units comprised of bedrooms, let me backtrack. We have units comprised of, think of it as sort of 3-tier space. You have your absolute private space, which is your bedroom. You have your semi-private space, which is the shared space within the flat that you live in. And then you have the common space that's shared amongst all the people that live within the building. And at some point, it'll be also shared with members of the Treehouse ecosystem. And so the breakdown of that is the way we've built out our spaces is you get your own bedroom, bathroom, because we found that to be a major pain point about living with people. Folks want their own bedroom, and people generally don't want to share a bathroom because of bathroom habits.
Especially in COVID times.
And so that was an important design element for us, was just to give people their own bedroom and bathroom. And we're dealing with adults. And so, as you get older, the idea of roommates gets a little tricky with just like what that means for a person.
Especially for guys.
Especially for guys,
That's not a good pickup line.
Right. But it's, think about for those who went to college or lived in some sort of communal housing or lived in your house growing up, or just lived in a place where you're getting on your feet. A lot of people have roommates. A lot of people live with people. A lot of people love that experience. And it's fun. Like, I have roommates. I can afford not to have roommates, but my nephews live with me. My brother lives with me. And like, it's a very welcoming experience to just have these different personalities, and in my situation, different generations of people that I can draw experience from, that I can draw knowledge from, to be able to create just sort of these ongoing experiences that I have in my own life. And so back to Treehouse. So we have, within our flats, everybody has their own bedroom, bathroom. You share a common kitchen space, and then we have larger common space that's shared amongst residents to do whatever you want to do in it. And our whole idea is for residents to treat it as home. And so that's why we put a lot of focus on design and just how we build out our spaces. We have a dining hall in all of our buildings that really facilitates further just the idea of creating community. And one of the ways in which that's done is through food, right? Everybody likes to eat. And so we all can come together over a meal, and that brings about conversation, that stirs up controversy, whatever the case may be. But it all in all, it just creates community. And so that's one of the important elements of our spaces. And then there's just some changes and iterations on, depending on which one of the buildings a person will be living in, about what they have access to. But the idea is that at the end of the day, we want people who live in and or are part of the Treehouse ecosystem to have access to all our spaces. Awesome. And then we program around that, and then we facilitate things around the build space that we have as a company, but we also push our residents to create autonomy within their spaces, such that they create, each and every individual building feels like home for the people that live there.
All right, cool. So let's get into this. Let's get into some of this spicy.
Some of the good stuff. Oh man.
Yeah. I have some questions that
All right, hit me with them.
I like to start in the gutter.
Gutter.
The guts hat. Yes. So you're not married.
Not married.
Are you single or single-ish? It's a difference, because I don't want to cast you. Single-ish it gives respect to.
Look, the way Ethan works, I'm either single or I'm not. There's no there's no it's complicated checkbox.
Okay. So you're single. Somebody else may have a boyfriend. I got it. Makes perfect sense.
This is going out in the public. Bear in mind that it is, what's the date today?
This is the 21st. Wait.
No. This is the 10th of January, 2021.
Yes.
So, as of today, I am single.
Okay.
January 10th, 2021.
Amen. All right. So, let me start with something interesting. What has been your experience with the Yoruba demons that you've seen? We're just going to jump in there. And for those from the outside looking in, the Yoruba demons are the ones that sometimes they call them F-boys, but these are the guys who have enough money to shock you or change your life, and then they can ghost you within the next day after they have chopped and dashed.
Wow. Oh, man.
This is the lead into
I didn't see this question
scene.
coming.
This is the lead into the dating scene. But yeah.
Yoruba demons. Such a funny question. Being in Africa has been an interesting learning experience to understand culture and how it operates. When I first heard about the Yoruba demons, so wild. It was truthfully a wild concept to me. But by the same token, I can understand it. I don't believe in it, but I understand how it works. I guess if that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, the whole it's not tricking if you got it.
Yeah. It's definitely a savage lifestyle that I personally, within my Western lens, as
PC, I understand.
I don't fully understand about it, but it's an interesting way to get out for sure.
Yeah. All right. I just had to shock you real quick.
Yeah, that was very much a shock.
Okay, but let's be more deliberate about this. So in dating in LA and seeing women in LA and seeing women in Nigeria, like, are there anything that sticks out, like culturally or just in general? Like, what are some differences you see? This can be actually outside of dating. This just doesn't have to apply to that part, but like culturally or just in general, what are some of the things that stick out? What are the differences?
That's a good one. This is a tough question because I don't feel like I've been here for long enough. I've gotten a very hyper-focused perspective on culture here, and I've just lived in LA all my life, so I understand just the nuances that come about from that. But what I've seen,
actually, that's one of the most amazing starts to that question I've ever heard.
Wow.
Says
Okay.
a lot. That says a lot because those people, Black Americans in particular, we are very opinionated, and we'll just jump out there. But you're like, I don't even know enough to respond, but let me tell you what I do have. Amazing.
I will say, prior to coming here, there was a bit of what will I call it? Attempted matchmaking on behalf of the folks here in Lagos, Nigeria,
where they were very determined to find me a wife, and it was what I thought to be the funniest thing. And when I got here, and there was a dinner with perspectives there. It was quite interesting. Being here, I think, and just the way I was introduced to it, there was very much this sort of, not necessarily a push, but what will I call it? An ushering in of like, Ethan, you have the ability to choose. Anyone you want. And from the perspective of like, these are women who are serious and interested in dating. Their experiences here haven't been favorable for them for various reasons. Yoruba demon, just culturally just not aligned with how men get down here in a lot of instances, at least the women that I've talked to. This isn't the case for everyone, I'm sure. And so I think that the interesting piece here was me coming in with a different perspective and a different approach towards dating. Was a lot of the interesting conversation I had with the women that I talked to here. It was just really like an opportunity to learn and understand, how do things work here. And it was very interesting to hear the consistency of experience amongst women with like, here's how it happens here. The consistent disposition of men, successful men, if you will, within Nigeria is their disposition is, as a man, it's my responsibility to take care of you as a woman fully. And you don't have any necessary responsibility in that regard to take care of yourself. Let me do that. You take care of all the other things. So this idea of gender roles in, I guess, just being very domestic to the extent of like, just seems very antiquated. Is definitely something that I've picked up here. Now, again, my 2-week sort of analysis doesn't give me enough information to be able to conclude that assessment as fact, but it's just what I've seen. In LA, I think there's just this huge push for I'd say an elevated women's movement, woman empowerment, and so women in LA are very empowered to operate within the dating world, the professional world, whatever world it is that they exist in, to operate as women who are very strong, very independent, very about their business, who don't necessarily need a man in any regard to support them in any way. It's more of a nice to have, desirable thing desirable thing.
Works.
But there's this. In some instances, there's this attitude of like, I got what you got, and so now how do we meet each other, and how do we come to an understanding of what is necessary for this relationship to exist the way that we individually want it to exist.
Yeah. From the outside looking in, now that I'm here, it seems a bit more fair. Actually, just unequivocally more fair, because I do find that men here who can buy your entire lifestyle and fund your wildest dreams,
it's wild.
It's not for free.
Yeah.
There's an expectation.
Right. Right.
And that is compliance across all levels for whatever happens. A lot of times people do not want to be in that situation. So it's very interesting. And then I must speak on your behalf. You're also in a bubble. So now if we want to take you to some of the, let's say, more urban areas, however I would say it, you would find just like you find in the U.S., a two-person and a two-income household is necessary as a means of survival. So we're both in a bit of a bubble. Cool. So let's see. What else do we have? We talked about the. We talked about what do we say about the cultural elements as far as dating. Has anything else stuck out? One of the things that I always like to mention is how class works here. Prophet and I actually had an amazing conversation about it, because my perspective was that Black America does not have class. Like, America in general does not have class the way the U.S. I mean, the way the UK or some of these European countries have class. And in here, as an American, I can actually come to Nigeria and some of these other British colonies, and even though they speak the same language, the language means a different thing. I'm supposed to conduct myself differently.
Right.
Have you noticed from the outside looking in, people kind of conducting themselves differently than you would in this situation, or any of those kind of like different subtle nuances that stick out?
Yeah, 100%.
Mine is traffic.
I think my first shock, if you will, of coming to Africa, and I don't know if this is just, I don't think that it's specific to Lagos. I think that this may be the case across the board, is there's extreme amounts of wealth and there's extreme amounts of poverty that exists here. And every place has its fair share of poverty. It just looks different. And I think that poverty is poverty wherever you go. It just depends on the system of poverty that you're operating in. So poverty in LA is bad, but poverty here is bad also. But as a result of that, I think that being here, the thing that shocked me the most was how people operate within that structure. The idea of house staff was the first thing that literally threw me for a loop, right? And
so you had two house staffs.
Two house
waiting on your every need.
Who, made breakfast, who, man, I don't even want to say this, but who did my laundry, who folded my clothes, and it was just, it was very, very much an interesting experience for me that I appreciated, but also took me by surprise a bit, and I don't fully know that I was comfortable with it.
Yes.
Because I do all these things at home myself. I make my own food. I wash my own clothes. Like, I'm just a dude who does everything. And like, having somebody, let alone two people, like, take on those responsibilities, such that I didn't have to worry about them, was interesting. And it didn't, to be honest, it didn't feel good initially. And I don't know that, leaving here now, I don't know that it feels good now.
Let me give you. So, I'm also uncomfortable, and I feel like, due to my Black American roots or connection to slavery, I see that servant job in the house the same way. It feels like slavery. Like I'm almost enslaving somebody. And it's just a very uncomfortable thing. And this is also very interesting because you come from a point of view, especially with the treehouse, where you're talking about building a community. As an American, that's interesting because America is built for the individual. Africa is built for the community. So, like, I've been forced to look at the house staff the same way I would look at a McDonald's worker. If that makes sense. It's like, this is the lowest minimum wage entry level job that you can get if you don't have access to anything or any resources.
Right.
And even if you can imagine now, the way you treat that that cashier at McDonald's or in the window, you have sometimes people who are, yes, thank you for the fries and the Big Mac, and you have some people that are over there roasting them on the microphone. Like everybody doesn't treat, and that's how I had to put this in my mind, to be able to just say, I'm going to personally choose to treat you the correct way, the same way I would if I go into a drive-through at McDonald's. Like, just because you're at the lowest end of the spectrum does not mean I get to disrespect you and mistreat you and look at you as a lower person. You're transitioning through something, or you're transitioning through this part of your life, and the only thing I can do is support you the best I can. And also looking at that and realizing, like, I can't save the world.
Right.
And if you look at a city where there's no infrastructure, there's no welfare, there's no this, there's no that, where people have to find something to do.
That's a good point. I think
so. That's just add this one thing. That's why you don't see a lot of sales in washing machines. There's just a lot of certain things you don't see sold or done here because technically people do these things. It's a people-based economy.
it makes sense. As opposed to in America, we're trying to weed people out, and when COVID hit, you saw an influx of just automated machines within grocery stores and at different establishments. And so we're taking jobs away, whereas here it seems like there's this, not push, but there's just always been this consistency of like, how do we exist together within this framework? And to your point about the McDonald's approach of like, how do I support you and you support me in the things that I need? But to that point, I think that the difficulty has been, and this has just been what I've seen. This is how those folks are treated, like in their own just expression and countenance. Like they don't seem to be the happiest folks.
Which ones? The people serving?
The people, the people serving, and I don't think that's. I think part of it is a result of, in some instances, about how they're treated by the folks that they work for. But it seems to be a cultural thing across the board here in Africa, whereas like people, I always try to be optimistic and happy and smile at you. That's not people's position here. Like, you smile at me, I need $1. I'm like, dang, I'm just trying to say hi and like be generous, but
you must be looking at me because you want me to have something.
Right. and coming in very blind to Nigerian culture, African culture, and just like I wanted to jump in and experience it without having much context about how things operate here, and I think that just how I've experienced it has been very interesting and has really challenged me to take a step back and be like, well, why are people acting like this? Why they not smiling? Why they not being nice? Why when I say thank you for a thing, it's almost as if it's a surprise or not a thing that's just consistently happening here. That's been interesting.
It's like, well, my parents raised me like, I'm not going to give you extra credit for something you were supposed to do. Which I get that feeling here. And things seem to be more like parental. Even when, like me as an employee, I have to, if somebody dies, if one of my employees has a death in the family, I have to give them money and take care of that. When Christmas time comes along, I have to give them like an extra month of salary. I give them foodstuffs and different things like that. If something bad, if they have an emergency, they're fully comfortable coming up and asking me, hey, like this terrible thing, my house flooded, I don't have anything, can you help me? As opposed to in the American context, I have to be like, man, how am I gonna make it to work on time? My house is flooded. Like I would never dare to go and to ask them to actually help me.
Huh.
So like, it's like, I guess for, like, I'm trying now to see it through your eyes, which is why I love when Americans visit here.
Yeah.
It's just because, like, it's like trying to, like, process those things that don't necessarily make sense, because it's a completely different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting. Anything else that sticks out to you? I remember Prophet was having an issue because, like, he saw somebody getting beat trying to get into a gate.
Oh man, the way they have controlled chaos here.
Yes.
And the systems that they have in place for securing spaces, protecting people, is wildly impressive. We were going to an establishment on the beach, and just the way in which they knew who had paid to get in and who didn't. And I mean, there were thousands of people trying to get in this space.
Yeah. By the way, this was the last Sunday to hang out at the beach before the Christmas holiday officially ended. Everybody was just trying to smell the water.
It was wild, and their ability to distinguish between people who were actually coming there to like hang and chill, and like people who were just trying to get in to cause some riffraff. That was wild. And then being in the midst of that was pretty crazy. But I think the interesting thing here is I operate within a certain framework and mindset of like how things should be, just because of the way systems have been built within my life. And so traffic, for instance, right? We have traffic lights and lanes and things that we follow, rules of the road. There's also rules of the road here, but from my perspective, there are no rules.
Yes.
But living here, I can see that there's an understanding of this is how we operate, and you, Mr. American Man, think that this is chaotic, which there may be some instances of chaos. However, living here and knowing how to operate within that system is very key to your sanity and understanding of like how it is that you move about. And so the traffic here it's crazy.
Not
but
awful.
But navigating it is so beautiful to see. Like,
yeah, it's like fish in a pond.
Yeah.
You've ever seen like salmon going upstream,
Yeah,
that whole
yeah.
chaotic thing, but they all are going in a similar place, and
Yeah.
nothing dies apparently outside of what does. I think that's very interesting. And again, I can appreciate your perspective. Not many people come here with the perspective of really trying to break things down. It's typically that's wrong, that's messed up, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Which it could be if you don't have the lens.
right.
So with that being said, what are some of the things from your experience would you bring from America to here? There's like a concept, a mindset, a technology, an advancement.
I think I'd bring just a concept of formal training such that people are able to elevate. I feel like there's, just in my understanding of conversations, the people who are living in extreme amounts of poverty, part of the reason why that continues to exist is because there's lack of structure here to help them to cultivate a skill set that they may have that, whereas in their day-to-day lifestyle, has been a means of them subsisting rather than them elevating towards the next goal that they may have for themselves. And so it's impressive to me to see a group of folks out on the street who probably have had no formal training in mechanics fix a car within a matter of hours. And so how do you begin to put a structure to that knowledge that people already have, such that they can build an infrastructure for themselves that allows them to get to the point where we're at? Because I think in their mind, it's just like, there's a broke down car, let me help to fix this. You give me a couple dollars and go on about your way, and I'll wait for the next opportunity to do that, rather than
Rolling shade tree mechanics.
yeah. And it's impressive, and just the different types of things that I've seen people do here, from fixing a car to walking down the street with a sewing machine and snips to like tailor you up. Like, these are things that exist in the States as very what do you call them?
they're very much specialized skills that people have that they monetize in major ways, and like seeing the amount of people here that do the exact same things, however, they're still living in a way that sort of keeps them held back. I think that there can be some benefit to bringing some structure or just some sort of process of instilling a thought, an idea of what can be done.
Seems like instilling more of a capitalistic mindset.
Somewhat, yeah.
Like structure, like add more structure to allow you to generate revenue.
Yeah.
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 Well, I think it's interesting because you say that, and what I find is that maybe 30% of the youth is unemployed. So you have that situation, and you have people who go to school, graduate, and their jobs are just not there. So you'll find like graduates and people who may have been working in a bank or any number of different things, but they also have the skill set as a tailor. Right. As like a carpenter or something like that, just so I can make money on the side when things fall off. So like here's the place I felt that most was in DC, where everybody had a side hustle. Like no matter what you did, they always had a second company or something going on. I get that feeling here as well. I'm sure it's that way in New York and probably LA and things as well. But yeah, interesting.
I'd say another thing here is people's knowledge and not involvement, but just understanding of government, because of how much government is in control in a way of the things that happen here and the way the systems exist here. I mean, it's the same in the States where, we have government and local politicians that make decisions. However, it's easy to be blind to just what's happening because, big business exists. People can work, make a living for themselves, and not really have to think about much beyond that. But here, it's just so ingrained in the lifestyle, and from everything from how billionaires are billionaires and how there's corruption that exists within the streets. It's just it heightens people's understanding of like, oh, this is what we exist in. So there's more of a political understanding of the climate here, almost forcefully. Like you gotta know, because it's a part of understanding why you exist in the structure that you exist in within your own individual life.
Exactly. I think you're coming in a very interesting time where the veil is being lifted in a lot of different ways in a lot of different places. So just imagine that now you're seeing the proliferation of like internet, smartphones, data. So even if we're talking about now where you have these masses of house helps and different things like that, that they may not have been that aspirational, but now they can tap in and they can see Lil Wayne and they can see Beyonce. They can see, and they're like, well, wait a minute, I want that, where they would have never seen that outside of the context that they're living in. So I think that's an interesting dynamic, and you're actually seeing this live change of values and perspectives from from the bottom to the top. That's again one of those driving forces and spirits behind the NSARS protest and how it went so far and came to a terrible end, but it's still going on in its own way. But again, now the world is more exposed than they've ever been, and there's a response there as well.
Another more of a micro thing, sort of a funny thing that I've noticed here is there seems to be a huge infatuation as well as a display of high fashion, whether it be real or fake. And I'm just not in a fashion world to know how to tell the difference, but everybody here, whether you look like you got money or not, you got Gucci, you got Louis, you got Off-White, Prada, Givenchy, all these fashion brands that seem to be the regular everyday wear of most people. And it's very interesting to me because it's like you see this in LA, but not to the degree that you see it out here. And in LA, it's very concentrated in certain areas, right? You go to certain areas and there's a particular style that exists within that area. Here, it's just like everybody's got it, and it's wild because it's just like.
No, are you seeing that at the street level, or are you seeing that at the bubble level?
I'm seeing it everywhere.
Because I'll say this. Lagos is the New York City of the African continent. There's money on top of money here, where there are people who, just to give you perspective, there are people who are ordering pizza in London and having it flew in here. So there's that level of opulence.
Oh man,
That's wild.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I've only existed within Lagos for the last few weeks, right?
Yeah.
So
So then you have the other level. We're at the street level where, again, you have the music videos and the different things where you see the names and you see things getting mentioned, but
Yeah.
you may not have an understanding of what it represents. Like, I remember a lot for I know what a Birkin bag is now,
Yeah.
but when Jay-Z was first mentioning it back there, I was like, whatever. I remember the Jay-Z line, what's the difference between a 4.5 and a 4.6? And I was like, I wonder what is the difference?
Right.
And then Jay-Z's next line is why I don't like Jay-Z now. Because I had a legitimate question. He was like, 40 to 50 G's, somebody beat it. And I was like, but there's that spirit here.
Right.
But on the street level, again, even if you look at it, you'll be in a restaurant eating. Have you heard trap music while you're eating?
Yeah.
And they're cursing and doing different things. Those curse words don't mean anything here. It's not actually a curse word. The F you this, the B word, all this other stuff is just another word that these foreigners say. So when you see the brands and different things like that, it's like, oh, I want the thing with the 2 G's on it.
Yeah. And if I can get it for a price point because it's a knockoff, then I'm gonna buy it because.
Well, it's not even it's just I want to be seen. That's how I that's fashion.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is more like, oh my goodness, I see that on the street and I have access to it. I'm not thinking about if it's real or fake. I just have seen that and I want to be associated with that, and I can access that. Give me that.
I'm still playing around with that, but yes, because I remember when it's more so in Ghana where they really, to a certain extent, people kind of just don't necessarily care. You'll see dudes wearing pink flip flops or different stuff like that, and it's just I still don't understand it always myself. So they don't care, but this is popular fashion. I don't think they have the context and always have the context of how expensive it is or what it does. Like Nike and Gucci may have the same value. Visually, if you see what I mean, how that works.
I don't think amongst the opulent, wealthy, it means something.
Yes.
To your point, the
level.
everyday person, the street level is just whatever, it's just close to me. But my perspective is just to get access to this in LA, you gotta pay a bit of a premium.
Yeah.
But here it's just whatever. It's like throwing on a Pro Club T-shirt. I'm good. It's my Gucci.
It's you're wearing this. What goes along with that?
Yeah.
That you have none of, by the way. But yes, I get it. I definitely get it. I still don't understand it, by the way. But at face value, it's just this is what's hot.
Right.
But I don't care why or how or why. But very interesting.
Yeah.
So let me jump into the last, because I know we're going to wind down. I should have done current events first, but it was so spicy, I saved it to the end. But so now you've told me some of the things that you would bring here. Are there some of the things, ideas, or perspectives that you would export from here to America when you go back?
I've always, in all of my travels, and it's present here, I've always appreciated the value of community. Going back to the original point that we were touching on, and I think village living and seeing that, and village living just it means different things everywhere you go, right? I'm not talking. People have their perspectives about what village living means, but just really seeing people commune together and share with one another, and I feel like there's a lifestyle here of, in a lot of ways of where we're not in this for our individual selves, we're in this for the collective.
Yeah.
And I think that if that was the energy and disposition that existed within Los Angeles, in the various communities that I find myself in, people will be much happier in a lot of ways, and people will be a lot less stressed because it's being here has, and I think I just do this in my normal life, just take a step back
and like appreciate the beauty of how people interact and like what does kindness mean? What does support mean? What does it mean to just collaborate with people and connect with people authentically? And I think that just the authenticity that I've seen that exists here amongst you all who I've hung out with over the last couple of weeks, amongst the other people that I've interacted with, is the same authenticity that I have within my small group back home. And I wish that it was a lot more just spread out in LA. And I think that there's something to be learned about being here that can be brought to the States for people to experience.
Nice.
What else? I mean, this is also for me, just being a black man in America, like, here everybody's black. And just being able to look around and be proud of that and not think twice about it, like, it feels like home.
Yeah.
You know? And I think LA is such a mixed bag of people, and you know, I interact with, get along with, love on just all people. But I just wish there was more of there were more communities that were reflective of me.
Yeah. I think that was a perfect way to say it.
Being there, living there.
Especially in the areas of success.
In the areas of success, for sure. And I think that somebody from here said, like, have you ever been to Atlanta? I'm like, yeah, I've been to Atlanta. Like, it sort of has that feel to it. Here, it's all black, and Atlanta gives you a bit of that.
Atlanta is edgy, though. Atlanta is kind of gritty.
It is. It's very gritty. And I was like, okay, I can kind of get where you're coming from, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And I was just like, there's a lot to be appreciated about this experience, and you know, I also just feel safe.
I was going to ask that. Okay.
And
you feel like you're safer than the U.S.?
Yeah, we in the U.S., I mean, gang violence is a thing, right? And I don't know what systems exist here that are synonymous with that, but like going out here and like being out late at night and being around our folks, it was just like, and this is probably a result of my own ignorance of being here and not knowing what happens. I was just like, there's nothing for me to worry about. Like, I feel like I can exist in any neighborhood and be good.
The
police is the biggest threat out here.
There you go. Some things change.
Police
don't.
gangs out here that, you know, sometimes you got to pay your way out of a situation. But I mean, truthfully, man, just growing up in South Central and growing up in that lifestyle, not as an affiliate, but just like somebody who experienced it from the perspective of others and had friends in it. And there was always this spirit of cautiousness that you just walk around with. And it sucks and it's unfortunate because it was amongst my people, you know, and getting us out of that mindset of like fearing one another, and getting us more into a mindset of just supporting and having a good time with one another was a thing that I didn't think about here a lot. It's just,
I'll say this to anybody traveling, anybody watching, if you're in a place where there's a high concentration of poverty, keep that. And that looking over your shoulder.
For sure.
But yeah, I guess it's just, I felt the same way here, but I had to realize again the socioeconomic status of where I was and the bubble I was in. Because like what hit me was when I was in Ghana. And I was just fresh off the plane, fresh in the country. And we were walking down the street. Of course, you know how lights are iffy sometimes here. So the street was just dark and there's like 5 or 6 guys walking this way and it's me and some girls, me and 2 girls walking. So we're facing them, and I'm just like slowly but surely kind of like putting myself in between them and being the first point of contact. And then when they tried to walk or whatever, like I just lightly like kind of like push somebody over, just like don't be in my way in case something goes down, they had
Yeah.
to put their hand on my shoulder and be like, look, like, calm down. Like, what are you doing? And it was like the equivalent of like if you see a cat where the hairs start popping up on it. It was like I was doing that. Like, it's
your
more of you than
instincts
me.
kick
Don't
in.
think it's. I see you.
Yeah,
and it was
for
just
sure.
that you're not in that environment.
Right.
The first response or the first thing that you're going to encounter from somebody who looks like you is not going to be violence. If you hear somebody yelling, the proper response is not to naturally jump up. You can match their energy, but this is not. Don't assume it leads to violence. Is what I learned, or the thing that called me down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very interesting perspective. Because like in traffic, when you see the way people talk to somebody, I would
Oh,
assume
man.
that somebody's about to die.
Oh, it's you get out your car, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Here, you get out your car, you argue, then it's all good
Slap
a few
the
minutes
person's
later.
car, you get back in and you drive off.
And it's like, yo, that would never fly in LA.
Yeah.
But again, it's what's been
Different place.
culturally established here, which is
Nice one. So we're start winding down now, but so the last thing I'll touch on before we do get to the closing part is the current events.
Okay.
So you've been in Nigeria while the worldwide screening of Olympus Has Fallen Part 2 has been shown all over the world. How does it feel? How does that impact you being here versus there?
I'm disconnected, honestly. It's sort of interesting. When I'm home, you look at CNN and all the news broadcasts and you see what's happening around the world and you're like, oh, dang, that sucks. You know? Being here and seeing Olympus Has Fallen and everything happening back home, it's sort of adopted this spirit of like, these folks are crazy.
That's the
And
first thing.
so it's just this reality check that like every place has their own issues. And I mean, I approach life, man, from the perspective of I can control what I can control. I can say the things that I feel are on my heart and have my own opinions. At the end of the day, people are going to operate how they feel necessary to operate. And it's wild. It's wild what's happening.
It's legitimately wild.
But it's not something that I'm that takes me by surprise. And these things have been existing my whole life, and these structures have been operating in the way that they've operated my whole life. And I think that we're just seeing things, we're seeing the same things in different ways. And until we all get to a point where we can operate within a spirit of appreciating life and people and perspective, like these things are gonna continue to exist. And so it sucks, and I'm vocal in some instances about the things that I deeply care about and the things that are supportive, things that support the people that I care about. But yeah, being here, it sort of takes me away from it a bit.
For me, it validated my entire world. Like everything, like, am I crazy? Should I really like bet on Africa? Like, And then I saw it and it was like, again, the veil has been lifted. I was like, America, you're not as good as you say you are.
What?
America, you want some other stuff right now. Like, this is a shaky trade. This is like some third world stuff you're doing right now. This is real third world.
Right. Here we are, and people looking at us sideways, like, oh.
Yeah. Like, are you from America? No, I left. I'm not.
Right.
I'm something else, bro. I'm a world citizen now.
Oh, man.
All right. So last question. Like, what is two-part question? Like, what would you tell to people? The most significant thing you can tell about your experience here? Like, what's that message that you'd like to share?
To share. It's a good question. What's the message I would like to share about here?
The thing, like, if somebody like you was coming here,
Mhm.
like, what would be that first that thing, that concept, whether it's a message, whether it's two words. When I was moving from Mississippi, my uncle's guiding message before I left to move to Washington D.C. He looked me deep in my eyes and reached out to shake my hand. He said, "Don't trust white people." His was that simple.
I think my message would be keep your eyes and your mind open to experiencing the beauty in the midst of everything else going on, right? Like there's a lot that you can be pessimistic about with being here, especially coming from the U.S. and you can sort of have just a very negative perspective about things. But I think this is just my mother's teaching of raising me and just appreciating people and experience. There's so much beauty here, and like I said, I've always wanted to come to Africa, and now I'm here, and I'm so excited to come back at some point to just continue to experience all of what I've always wanted to experience for most of my life. And so just find those moments of beauty, of life, of experience, connect with people, and learn. Be a lifelong learner of culture and understand the privilege that you operate in with being able to come here or anywhere.
Yeah, very true. Very true. All right. Well, thank you. So, is there anything you want to share as far as like information, social media handles, or anything like that?
Look us up at Treehouse Co-Live. It's COLIVE. Treehouse before that.
.com.
Our website is treehouse.community.
Okay.
So if you want to check out Treehouse Co-Living, find out what we're doing, and follow us. Follow us. Check us out. Give us a shout out. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you.
This is cool, man. I appreciate being able to give perspective and have open dialogue about experiences abroad. And there's a big world out there.
Amen.
What I continue to realize about my travels is there's a big world, and if you have the opportunity to explore it, take those stories back and encourage other people to do the same, or at least instill the lessons learned from the abroad experiences that you've learned into other people. And appreciate the beauty in that.
Appreciate the beauty.
So,
all right.
yeah,
Cool.
solid. Appreciate y'all.
Normal thing. Again, Sean Burrows, co-host of Abroad While Black. I'm passionate about building an economic bridge between Africa and its diaspora, and I do that through Aggressive for Good and Burrows Enterprises. Check us out on YouTube, again, Abroad While Black, and also check us out on our Instagram and Facebook channels. Every Sunday we drop new videos, so come on in and check us out. Thank you again, and thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.